Welcome to Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship, and I'm excited to be sharing with you my life with a son on the spectrum. This podcast is for anyone who is looking for quick tips and perspective, but most of all, for hope and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and let's put the pieces together. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Pieces for My Puzzle. I'm your host, Nikki Ship. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited for today's episode. But before we get started with that, if you didn't get a chance to tune into last week's podcast episode, please do so. We had a great interview with the fabulous Stacy Faust from Be Unstoppable with Human Design. And it was quite the conversation. So please tune into that episode if you haven't already. But I am so excited for this week's podcast. We are going to be kicking off my Moms with Mimosas series, and I cannot be more excited to have some of my most favorite people on the show today. So I'd like to introduce to you, please welcome Gretchen and Jolene. These are some of my mom friends. Gretchen and Jolene and I actually have a common factor. Our children go to the same school called the Autism Academy here in Gilbert, Arizona. And I've been wanting to do this series for a long, long time, partially because I just feel like people are probably getting tired of just hearing my perspective only as being a mom with an autistic child. So I wanted to jump in with you ladies and get more of that mom perspective, because I think it's so important for parents to be able to take a step back and realize, one, that they're not alone, right?
Right.
And two, that there's a lot of resources available to our kiddos. And you know, it's a community, right? I feel like I can do so much more when I have you guys with me. You guys are my tribe. So I wanted to bring that to the table. So let's open up the conversation first I'm just going to ask you guys how old your kiddo is and what age they were diagnosed, and we'll go from there. So,
okay. Elias is 9. He is 12. I don't know why I said 9. He is 12 and he was diagnosed late at about 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
About 6 years old.
About kindergarten.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And hi.
Peyton
is 14 years old. He was diagnosed at 5.5.
5.5.
Yeah.
Okay. And so tell for our listeners listening in today, can you give a little bit of perspective about how the diagnosis came to be? Was it difficult for you guys to get that diagnosis? Was it something that was more difficult after the diagnosis, or, you know, what was your perspective on that?
Ours was, it kind of evolved, I would say. I mean, we started probably noticing differences with Elias and then the other students in his in his preschool, probably about 4. But I think at that age, it was still pretty hard for us to pinpoint it because they're still so young and they're at different levels anyway. But 4, it started to show. And then he did 2 years of preschool. And then when he got into full-time kindergarten, where there's a big age difference between 4 and 6. And there was also 30 students to a classroom, then a very small half-day preschool, we really, program, right. It really became obvious for us. So, and the school did the original assessment, but then we went got the clinical one from a psychologist, because that's what the insurance is recognized. Yeah. So, but it wasn't difficult to get the diagnosis. No, probably more difficult after.
Right. Okay. How about you, Jolene?
Excuse me. Sorry. Okay. Peyton's diagnosis happened by strangers prior to getting an actual psychologist diagnosis. At 3 years old, I had women tell me that, you know, they thought that there was something that I needed to look into for Peyton. And I continued to take him to doctors without an actual diagnosis. And it was a struggle. They kept telling me that he was fine. He was the youngest of 5. He was in a bilingual home, and that the things that I were seeing were typical. And having 2 other children that are typical, older children, I definitely saw signs and knew in my mom gut that there was something there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
It was hard once I heard it,
Right.
and I even fired a pediatrician that had tried to tell me
Right.
because I just didn't even I couldn't believe it once it was being said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hard thing
Yeah.
to hear, to believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elias was an only, but I got the same comments. He's an only. He's a boy. Late talker,
Right.
immature.
I heard the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a boy. Boys
He doesn't know how to
boys are
share.
later than girls.
Right.
You know, Drayson was diagnosed young at age 3.
Okay.
But same thing. I kind of noticed things, and I was like you. My mom kind of knew something was going on.
Absolutely.
And I had people, asking, and I was like, no, he's fine.
Right.
Kind of pushed it to the side. The diagnosis wasn't difficult for us either. I think it was more after. I personally had to get kind of past my own almost anger. I don't want to say, I don't want to sound like I'm angry at my child, because I love my child.
Yeah.
But, it was one of those things where I just was angry at the fact that I had no control over it, I think is what it was for me. So
and the uncertainty and
right.
The unknown.
the unknown.
The
right.
unknown. And I think the isolation.
Sad for your child.
The isolation.
Yeah. Right.
I got a lot of questions from my family right off the bat of, asking about autism, and I didn't even know anything about it yet. And so it was really hard just to field some of those questions from our friends and family when we first got the diagnosis, because I didn't know how to react. And then I even felt a sense of anger towards people if they were giving me suggestions on what to do.
Same.
I almost got really angry, like, you have no idea what I'm going through.
Right.
And
Right.
I would get really angry.
Defensive.
Right.
I mean, it changes your perspective on parenting, because what you normally do out of just what comes natural, you question everything.
Yeah.
Am I feeding them right? Am I bathing them right?
Right.
Because there's just so many different emotions that come out of your child with autism.
Right. And I think that's hard to decipher in general, just as a mom with kids in general. It's like you worry about all those things. So it's like, well, am I worrying about it because of the mom aspect, or am I worrying about it because of the autism aspect? Like, I felt like I couldn't decipher between the two.
Where one starts and the other ends.
Because it all kind of
right.
melds all the way through. It kind of
Right.
transcends through.
Right.
So it was really, really difficult for me to navigate that at first.
I agree.
And to not be angry. And like I said, I think it's just because maybe that means I'm just a huge control freak. I don't know, but I didn't have control over the situation, and that really upset me on a level that it took me a while to get out of my own head on it.
I think I'm still there sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm in counseling every week, and I talk about, sometimes in my life through Peyton being diagnosed, and not just because of autism, but just dealing with it. And I needed to lean on my counselor, because it's depressing.
Yeah.
It's defeating sometimes when you don't know answers to symptoms and things, but it gets better.
It does. It does. And I'm sure you guys will agree. I've had so many beautiful moments with Drayson, and as I've navigated through the autism, community and learning about therapies and resources for him, it's like I've almost woken up to a different perspective. But I'm so happy that I've still been able to embrace those beautiful moments, because I think, and those are a lot of talks that I've had with parents too, where, you're not going to enjoy those things if you're so caught up in
The diagnosis
or being angry or trying to figure out even the why.
Right. Right.
That's been a huge, I'm sure you guys can relate.
For sure.
Huge
Everybody
question.
asks me what I think about the reason why behind it.
Why do you think it's happening?
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't even have the answer. I don't have.
My favorite is when, I get information sent to me that with someone that has nobody on the spectrum and says, here, you should look into this. And I try to be open-minded, but it's hard not to almost get that defensiveness that we were just talking about. Where you're like, did you read this article, or have you researched this, or is this just something you came across? And I think that that's difficult sometimes, not to feel so much on the defense.
Well, I think it's our job. And I think we take it very serious as parents of special needs, because we are their advocates. Yeah. We
Yeah.
are their advocate, and it's our responsibility to filter the crap,
Yes.
that comes our way.
Yeah.
The certain services or, this pill can fix it or whatever. And realizing what's best for our child.
Right. And I almost felt like it was a brand new job that I had like no background or expertise in.
Same.
I was like, I don't know what the hell
A job
I'm
I
doing.
didn't want at first. I just wanted to be Peyton's mom.
Right.
Right. And not a clinical.
Everything else. Right. Yeah.
Right. And not an analytical, clinical person that has to endure all of that on top of it. Yeah. It makes it really, really difficult. So what have you felt has, what? Yes.
Hey, let's put a pause right here at that question. I need to come in and adjust something.
Okay. It's driving him crazy.
Good, because I need to cough.
That's okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
I'm going to take a sip.
Yeah.
I'll take a sip.
Yeah.
Was it driving you nuts?
So I just, when you're talking in towards them, your voice was going down. That's my fault. I should have put
sorry.
No, it's my fault. I should have put the mic justified towards the inside because you're talking to them. So
we're good. We got it.
Okay.
So much more. Oh, and I can grab my mimosa so much easier. That's so. Thank you.
Yeah. Right now you're really.
clear path.
Now you got this. Yeah. I don't.
Perfect. He's so funny. I love him.
How
You guys doing okay?
I know, right?
Are you guys doing okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So
Were you recording that whole time? Because that means that's going to go in the blooper reel.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, great. I'm so excited.
So I'll have to wait for you to put the mimosa down so we don't have a break in continuation.
So all of a sudden you see the like. Okay.
All of a sudden it's party Nikki.
That's Party Nikki. There's Party Nikki. Okay.
Okay, go ahead and take it at that question.
Okay. All right, thanks, Bill. So what have you guys felt has been your biggest challenge as a mom with a child on the spectrum? We were just kind of talking about the struggle with the diagnosis, so we've kind of led into that. But for you personally, what's been your biggest challenge?
For me, I mean, it's pretty obvious. For me, it was behaviors. It was not how I handled the behaviors, because I love him. I'm his mom, and it's fine for me, but it was always nerve-wracking going out in the community, and if he had a behavior, I couldn't control how people viewed it, and that was really hard for me. Not because I thought they thought anything negative of me, whatever you can think.
Right.
It was, I didn't want negative thoughts about my child. So unlike other disabilities or, disabilities kids or adults might have, with autism, it's hard to recognize, like visually.
You don't always know. Yeah, you can't.
Right. So it was always hard
autistic,
for me because some of his behaviors, I think people would look at us and think maybe he was just having a bratty moment, or an undisciplined child, or what is she doing wrong? So I didn't fear what they thought of me necessarily, but I feared what they thought of him, or if people would intervene, and I couldn't control that. So that was hard for me, was the behaviors in the community, not at home, but in the community.
Okay.
That was definitely my hardest.
Yeah. What about you, Jolene?
My hardest thing was communication with Peyton and just finding the right way. Sometimes I have to circle a mountain, to get an answer with him.
Yeah.
And just finding the right way. I still sometimes I'm like, okay, let me ask that a different way.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
Potty training was hard for communication.
Yeah.
He really struggled, expressing. And still to this day at 14, where I'm so grateful that he communicates at a much different level.
Absolutely.
It's work, and we're working on it every day.
Yeah,
all day,
it's
every day.
Process of elimination.
Absolutely.
And I think
way to say
that's been the hardest part for me too. I think is that communication level with Drayson, because he's still, he's verbal, but he's not, he's still partially nonverbal. So he won't always tell me how he's feeling or what he's thinking. So to try to meet that need, it was so frustrating for me because I wasn't sure. Is this really what he wants, or does he want something else? And then I would try not to exacerbate the behavior, and every time I went into a Target with him, I felt like I had a arsenal bag full of stuff just in case he lost it, that I could
Target, I'm surprised I wasn't ever had the police called on me because Target was like the scene of the crime of tantrums.
I know.
I had to lay down one time on the floor with him in a Target.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, you know, like the place.
Oh my
because he didn't want to get back in the cart. And I ended up, you know how many times I left grocery carts?
Oh, full of
Of groceries.
Like, I'll just do it later.
Do it late. Yeah, because one, the physical abuse,
right.
you know, because he couldn't communicate. He hit, he pulled hair.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's so hard.
It's
because you know that they're trying to let you know
express something,
but you can't figure out what it is. And it's like, I mean,
it's not actually to hurt. It's to communicate. It's to express that frustration.
We've literally become mind readers.
Yeah.
Is what I've felt like for a really long time until Jason started to verbalize more and communicate more. That was always really hard for me. And I was like you, Gretchen. I didn't really care what people thought of me.
Right.
You know, but it was more of the perception of, because
that's still my
looking at Jason, he looks like a normal boy. Yeah. He doesn't look like
someone who struggles with
and
communication.
Your child doesn't look like they have autism.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Oh.
I'm like, well,
tell me what it looks like.
What's it supposed to look like? Yeah, I've always wondered that too. When people say that, I'm always like, well, what does that look like?
Right.
You know, because it's such a vast, and that's why, you know, some people say, well, do you still stay on the spectrum? And I'm like, I do, because it's such a vast range.
Right. I know there's different terms and different things. Right. He's autistic. He's on the spectrum.
Right. Yeah. That's what I usually say too. Right. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what has it been like trying to find, you know, services and resources for your child? I know we've had a lot of conversations about this, you know, so feel free to, you know, share your experiences with our audience listening today.
You want to start that one?
Sure. So it's like peck and find.
Yep.
It was the beginning, just finding out, understanding what the different therapies were, really seeing that there's so many different views on how to approach autism.
Yeah.
And just realizing that it was our choice as a family on how we were going to work through it.
I agree.
Music therapy is how we started.
Oh, amazing.
Music, Peyton, we didn't know it, but he could play classical piano without ever having a piano in the house. And it was a happenstance at a doctor's office that he first played, and then we really were able to start that way of communication. But it's been a synergy of things: music, occupational, speech from a very young age. Physical therapy, trying just what works best.
Right.
And I really think that it's per child.
It is.
It is.
Per child, per family.
Per
like
family,
you said.
yes. It's what is right for your family and what's right for your schedule.
And right for your child at that moment.
Child.
Yeah.
And what's in your means.
Right.
The pressure that we put on ourselves to progress them and normalize them, you know, as much as possible is a large pressure that so many families place on themselves. And I think just starting with the very basics is what I would tell a parent.
Right.
Yeah. To start from there. What were you going to say, Gretchen?
Oh, no, I would say, I agree. I think it's a family preference because I think there's no one way to start services, I don't think. I mean, and like you said, it's really like when you're first diagnosed, nobody hands you an instruction book full of pamphlets of where you can go.
Great?
Yeah, it would be great.
You go to Google. Your user manual.
Right. You're going to Google and you're sitting in your room on your phone till 1 a.m. trying to find services and read reviews about what other parents think. And then that's kind of hard because it's so, you know, it's their own opinion. So one loved it, one didn't. But we started with ABA.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mixed reviews on ABA, so I was very cautious about which facility we ended up with, and I loved the one we used. And at that point, school just wasn't beneficial for Elias. He was getting sent home every single day. It was more damaging than it was beneficial. It was hurting his self-esteem because he was getting sent home every single day. Just because we didn't realize how much the environment, I mean, in fact, we just talked this morning about how he knows he couldn't be in a neurotypical school because of the bells. And I didn't realize the morning bell, the recess bell, the lunch bell, the afternoon recess, the after school bell. By the time he got home, he was so heightened from all of the
and dysregulated.
Yes, and dysregulated that halfway through the day he was getting sent home because he was so dysregulated.
Wow.
So we at that point pulled him from school and decided that full-time ABA is what we did. So we did Monday through Friday ABA at a clinic. And when I say clinic, it sounds very like doctor, but it wasn't. I mean, they're ABA therapists, BCBA, but it was play-centered. So they had air hockey, they had a bounce house, they had basketball hoops. It was all around play. And Elias went there Monday through Friday, 9 to 4:30. And they did speech, they did OT, they did PT. And so we thought, even though it was like we had to choose between academics at that point. We did what we could at home. I mean, we did the homeschooling and we found, we did, but it wasn't as robust because I felt like, what's the point if he can't even sit in a classroom?
Like he get these other things taken care of.
And it was hard for me at first because I had never left him with anybody. And so the first day we dropped him off, I'm there, and I'm like, he kicks, he hits, he throws things, and they're like, yes. And they're like, this is
the warnings.
This is,
he would give
warnings. Yeah. And then the director, she's like, this is what we do. He's safe with us. Like he's safe. And so I was like, okay, can I sit in the lobby? And she's like, sure. But I mean, she's like, but I heard her with him and, he did have some meltdowns and they handled it. And then I felt better and it was great, but it saved him for sure. And
don't you feel like you have to go down the laundry list with people when you're get putting them to that therapy,
right.
Like, oh, by the way, like he's a runner.
Good
luck.
Nothing surprised them. And he was there for a long time, 4 years, I think is 3 to 4 years full time. And I really liked them because we met with them every week. They did parent because as much as they were helping him, they were helping us.
Yes. Smart.
They really helped us focus on, because everything for me was an issue. You know what I mean? Like, what do I tackle? I'll tackle everything. And they were like, no, like him being a picky eater isn't the biggest issue right now.
Right.
If he wants to grow up and eat chicken strips and French fries as a 40-year-old adult, he can. So let's focus on him having better tools to regulate his emotional stability. And so they really helped us focus on, so I didn't feel so overwhelmed like everything was an issue. She really helped me focus on these are actual issues. Yeah. So, and they never talked about really his stemming, his flapping and stuff. They would say, is it important to you? And I would say, well, I feel like it regulates him. Like I knew,
right,
as much as it kind of made him obvious to other people in situations that he was autistic, but I knew, James and I knew from instinct from the get-go that it had some sort of regulation purpose. Right. We knew that. So we would say it was not a big deal to us. Yeah. And they never said like, well, normal this or normal that. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of something similar with Drayson. We decided too, is that we weren't going to focus so much on that.
No. Yeah.
He was nonverbal and he verbally stems too.
Yeah. So does Elias.
So it was funny because, right. So it was funny because I remember one provider was like, do you want to stop that? And I'm like, no, but because he's in speech therapy too. And if he's starting to try to use his voice in some capacity, I don't care what it is.
Right.
I want him to just do it. And if that's his way of regulating, then, my whole thought is as he got older and began to self-conceptualize a little bit more, and it was based off of an article I read. I remember I just picked up this article and it was over an autistic adult saying that he still stems, but he doesn't do it as much now. He waits until he's at home or in a private setting because as he got older, he was able to self-conceptualize those things. So he always says it didn't just go away because, people would compliment him on, you're doing such a good job that you got rid of that. And he's like, no, it doesn't go away.
Right.
It's there. It's still a part of me.
Right.
But it wasn't until he was older to learn that
he fit himself
there was
in the world,
an
like
appropriate time and place. Yeah. And so that's kind of where I'm hoping the next wave of things go for Drayson is that because I'm starting to see those signs of him self-conceptualizing and it's really funny because before it was not like that with him. It's just some of the comments he's made and some of the things he's made and things he's observing and he's noticing. Like, it's like I can tell he's becoming more self-aware.
Right.
But I felt that way too, and in all the therapies too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, plus I think you guys will agree, it still allows you to be mom.
Yeah.
If you have help like that.
Right. Absolutely.
I had a mom once say to me that she thought her child might be autistic, but she didn't want to get them diagnosed because
she didn't want the label.
She didn't want the label, and she didn't want to have to go through all the evaluations to figure out and to have to do all the therapies.
Wow. Excuse me.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Which I then kindly just said, that's nice, and turned around and walked away because I was like, you can't be my friend.
Right.
Like, it was one of those things where it was very shocking to me to hear that. And I felt like that had a lot to do with her headspace, with her mindset. Yeah. Because why else would you? I mean, I just, you have to get out of your own head to be able to do some of this stuff too. Right.
I also.
Oh, so true.
Yeah.
We have to let go of ego when you have a child that. What really helped me get out of my head was something I just said for the first time to my doctor. I was at a Ryan's House breakfast to raise money for children with life-ending diseases.
Yes.
And, they played this video, and I had this freeze come over my body. And I'm like, these people, these parents, these grandparents are going to lose their child. Mm-hmm. I have Peyton. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have him, and he's healthy. Mm-hmm. Is it hard? Absolutely. Right. But it's not life ending.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And when you tell yourself that, you're like 1 foot in front of the other, we're going to do it together.
Right.
You stop feeling sorry for yourself. Yeah. And you take the ego out of it. Yep. And it's like that we can get through anything because we know there's a process for each child and each adult, that we're learning, but it's not life ending. Right.
And to stop obsessing about the why, what we were just talking about earlier, that whole, well, what do you think caused it? And I tell parents all the time, I don't have time to figure out why. Right. Oh yeah, there we go. Here we go. We're going to pass. For those of you listening, we're doing a little toasting. Cheers real quick. Here we go. Little sip for moms and mimosas. Cheers, ladies. Thank you. And I think that's something that we don't realize is that I don't have time to figure out the why. I have time to help my son, and that's the end of it. Right. That's just
it's the now.
It's the now.
Right.
And I'm gonna, have faith in autism research and dollars that,
going forward,
us as a family we've donated to, and we've put time into to help that cause. But at the same time, that's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is to help my child. Right. And I think sometimes the bigger picture, the bigger problem, I've come across having those conversations with parents where that's what they're caught up in. Yeah. And I'm like, you're missing the ball.
Right. Yeah.
And that
I don't have time for the why.
Right.
The research is so important.
It is.
Excuse me. It's really easy to get caught up in it.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's so important so we can be stewards for the next generations and help find a reason why there is such an increase in autism.
Yes.
It's very important.
It is.
But I get it. Yeah. You can go down that horrible dark hole where is it mom's fault? Is it dad's fault? Who is it? Is it genetic? Where is it coming from?
And environmental,
and
all of those things.
And shame. And wondering, what did I do different in the pregnancy to have a child with autism? You fault yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So the research, I think, is healthy to keep one side of it open.
Yes.
Because there's some parents that won't even look at research.
Yeah, no, I read the research.
Absolutely.
It's just, like you said, not important to
I just believe that, I know that I can help donate dollars or do that.
And let the doctors
and let them leave it to the experts
and then let me know.
That are really honing in on that, right?
Smart.
Because I want to be the expert in terms of just being a mom to an autistic son, because that in and of itself, I feel like, it's such a huge undertaking. It's like the learning curve is really, it's like, wow, it's like saying you get that job that you didn't want in the first place and wait, hold on, what's going on?
Right.
Right.
And so, but you're right. I think it is still important to read the research because there's lots of things that I've read to help, then sway me whether or not I'm going to make that decision to do those things for Drayson.
Right.
So I do believe in that as well. It's just taking that action.
Right.
It's a lot.
It's hard.
You have to, there's only so much bandwidth you have.
Yes.
You're a mom, you're also a wife working, so it takes a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
I think one of the best things too that our ABA therapist helped us with, and we've talked about this, is that she would always explain to me that there really isn't autistic behaviors. There's human behaviors, and some individuals with autism show exaggerated behaviors in certain areas. So we all stem, we all shake our leg, we all tap our pens. We all have a way of getting rid of this excess energy and nerves that we get. It's just our kiddos maybe do it on a bigger scale or more frequently, or so I think that
amplified.
Yes, it's amplified. So I think that really helped me not be scared of certain things when I was like, why is he doing this or why is he doing that? And I'm like, wait, I do that just on a lesser scale. So, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about some of the therapies that you have in place currently for your kids right now.
Well, we're, when we graduated him out of ABA and out of the clinic and he entered into Autism Academy, we haven't really done too many more. Right. So there was, like I said, that was 3 to 4 years of OT, PT, speech, play therapy. I mean, he was so immersed in it that now we're taking a step back and we're letting him really try to master being in the school setting. Because this is really his only second year of ever being in a school setting.
Right.
Because he didn't make it through kindergarten. We pulled him. And part-time preschool, 4 hours, 3 days a week, I don't think really counted. So we're letting him sort of master that. And then we'll see where we want to pick up with other therapies. So that's where we're at.
How about you, Jolene?
We've went through little bits of time where it's been 3 days a week of different therapies. And then there's times where there's no therapy going on. It's just school.
Yeah.
I think that it's based on the child
and their needs
and what they're, some children, need that stimulation of all different types to keep them focused in school. And some, it's just like a typical child that plays sports or is in music lessons. Sometimes it just gets to be too much.
Yeah.
Right now, Peyton is in music therapy every other week outside of school. And he has speech inside school, perfect. Yes.
Yep.
And we're getting ready to start a new speech program, an online speech program to help him over the summer.
That's great.
And I want to say, like, outside of therapy, I think we do our own therapy where we
do
really get our kids, like, we have focused on getting our kids together a lot.
Yeah.
And social environment.
We're segueing more into the social as well.
And so I think that is therapy in itself, maybe not with a professional and in the setup, but we're trying to get them immersed more in the community, I feel like.
Right.
So
yeah, that's great. Well, I want everyone to tune in for next week for part 2 of My Moms with Mimosas here with Gretchen and Jolene. But that concludes our episode for today. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you have questions, comments, or even a show topic that you would like to hear about, please feel free to send me an email at info@piecesformypuzzle.com. Feel free to also like us on Facebook and Instagram if you haven't already. And go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can make sure that you're hearing all the latest episodes. Thanks again for tuning in. And until next time, keep working on your puzzle. And remember, you don't have to have it all solved in a day. Take care.